I'm a few miles west of Williamsburg, right up against the James River, walking a battlefield that most Americans have never heard of. And there's no visitor center, there's no monuments really, and there's nobody else here but me right now. But on this ground, thousands of soldiers fought a desperate battle. And this battle involved names such as the Marquis de Lafayette, General Mad Anthony Wayne, and British General Lord Cornwallis, some of the biggest names from the Revolution. And what's more, this was an important chapter and an important stepping stone leading to the Siege of Yorktown, which would take place only a few months later. So today I'm going to be visiting this site and exploring some of the history. I'm standing along historic Green Spring Road, which we see cutting before us. And this road was here back in 1781. And I'm here to learn about the Battle of Green Spring, but I think it's important to provide a little bit of backstory to understand how a British and American army ended up fighting a battle on the eastern side of the James River in the summer of 1781. Well, at that point in the war, it had essentially reached a stalemate in the South. The British failed to crush the rebellion, even though they held major cities such as Charlestown. And then on March 15th, 1781, the British fought a costly battle against General Nathaniel Greene at Guilford Courthouse in North Carolina. And General Cornwallis's army was so beat up, and I think he was probably just so frustrated with the Carolinas, that he decided to head north into Virginia to gain a better strategic position and to ultimately link up with another British army, which was near Petersburg under the command of Benedict Arnold. And Arnold ended up leaving for New York after Cornwallis assumed overall command. And that just always makes me wonder if Arnold was still with Cornwallis's command for some reason, and he ended up being part of the surrender at Yorktown, what that would have meant. But I guess we'll never know. So after combining the British forces, Cornwallis marched in this direction, and he had camped out near Williamsburg. Well, he received orders from General Clinton in New York to march towards Portsmouth, Virginia, and send a couple thousand troops northward because General Clinton was convinced that a combined American and French force was going to attack him in New York. Well, in order to get there from Williamsburg, Cornwallis had to come to this area right here and cross the James River. Of course, with an army crossing a river, they were very vulnerable at that time, and Cornwallis knew it. And by the way, throughout this whole time, they were being shadowed by an American army under the Marquis de Lafayette. Well, Lafayette also knew the British would be vulnerable during this crossing and determined to attack the rear guard of the British army and gain some sort of victory. Well, Cornwallis, being the tactician that he was, decided to leave his entire army on the eastern side and essentially lay a trap for the American army. So he had out most of his troops near Green Spring Plantation in a way that they could not be seen by an approaching American army. And on the morning of July 6, 1781, American General Mad Anthony Wayne, with a force which ended up being about 900 Virginian and Pennsylvania troops, proceeded southward, following generally the Green Spring Road line, as we see here. And of course, General Wayne's force of 900 men had no idea that they were marching into the teeth of the main British army. And for 2 hours, General Wayne's men fought back British pickets, assuming that they were gaining some victory here and that they were approaching the rear guard and that they would be successful. Well, Cornwallis, as I said, laid a trap. He had his men laying in wait, and he also placed a piece of British artillery out in a field and just left it there. And it was bait, and it worked. General Wayne's men approached and seized the cannon. And when they did that, that was the signal for the British army to open up. And they opened up with artillery and grape shot and followed it up with a massive infantry charge against General Wayne's men. Well, General Wayne and his men were stunned by this. And by the way, Marquis de Lafayette, who was overall in charge to the north, realized as he was doing recon, realized what was happening, but it was too late to recall General Wayne's men. So the battle was on. And General Wayne essentially had two options. He could retreat, or he may not even had an option. The men might have just fallen back and retreated in the face of this approach of British soldiers. But he actually decided to do something completely different. He ordered his men to fix bayonets, and he ordered a charge into a vastly superior British force. And this unexpected event really stunned the British just long enough for Lafayette to come in with his men to cover the retreat of General Wayne's troops and ultimately the withdrawal of the American army. And today, the battlefield, if you can call it that, is here. It's where we're standing right now. And there, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of acres that have been preserved, thankfully, as part of the battlefield itself. But as I mentioned, Green Spring Road, which cuts right here, this was here at the time of the battle. A lot of the fields you see over there, which I believe are private, they're part of some stables, that was where much of the fighting took place. And over here today, we have cornfields, still pretty agrarian, which is nice to see. And certainly some of the fighting and the engagement took place in this general area as well. And like I said, there's no visitor center, there's no monuments really, but there are a few signs that we can check out. And this one we were already kind of looking at here. I like this because it gives a map to give you an idea. So here where we're at is right about here, like I said, on the right side of Green Spring Road, if you're looking north. And Cornwallis's main force came here from the southern direction. General Wayne's men came from this direction, right down here. And as General Wayne's men marched down through these fields fighting back British pickets, they really did believe that they were going to have victory at the end of the day. But generally off in this area, the British Army laid in wait. So really a fascinating battle that involved some of the biggest names from the Revolutionary War. And one other thing I wanted to point out here is this battle map is actually based on a battle map that was drawn out in 1781. So it's pretty accurate to where the troops actually were in relation to some of these geographic points in this area. And off over here to the side are a few historic markers that I wanted to take a look at. The first one here is about Governor's Land, and if you're looking for this site that I'm at today, if you just put in Governor's Land into your GPS, it'll bring you to this site. But basically this whole area has a ton of history that goes way before the Battle of Green Spring. And you also have historic Jamestown really nearby. So if you've ever been there, you were actually right here by the battlefield, whether you knew it or not. And this sign right here is the main sign for the Battle of Green Spring. It reads, "Nearby, late in the afternoon of 6 July, 1781, General Charles Cornwallis and Cavalry Commander Colonel Tarleton, with 5,000 British and Hessian troops, clashed with 800 American troops commanded by Brigadier General Mad Anthony Wayne and the Marquis de Lafayette. Believing that the main British force was across the James River and that he was attacking Cornwallis's rear guard, Wayne soon realized that he was facing far superior numbers. He startled the advancing British forces by charging them, exchanging volleys, and then withdrawing his troops from encirclement in certain defeat." And then the sign for historic Green Spring Road. Again, there at the end, you can see on 6 July 1781, the Revolutionary War Battle of Green Spring was fought in the fields flanking this road. And the last sign here is for the church on the Main, and this is less than 1 mile to the east, and we're actually going to head down the road there now because some of the men who were killed in the Battle of Green Spring are laid to rest and honored there. Well, I was not expecting this to be in a residential neighborhood, so this is a little bit of a surprise to me, but we're here at the church on the Main. And here's a little bit of history for you. The church on the Main, which lies ahead, was built of brick in about 1750. Along the main road connecting Jamestown and Williamsburg. During the Battle of Green Spring, which took place in the fields and woods to your left on July 6, 1781, the church served as a landmark for the right flank of the British Army camp. Soldiers on both sides fought again a few months later in October 1781 at the decisive Battle of Yorktown, 16 miles to the east. The church was demolished in the 1850s, and the site, along with the associated cemetery, was returned to farmland. It's really interesting. So we're going to wander down there and check it out. Yeah, this is really peaceful back here, and like I said, it's in a neighborhood, so I can't even imagine having your backyard like these folks do, butting right up against so much history. I think that's really neat. And like we mentioned, the actual church on the Main was demolished in the 1850s, so there's no structure standing here today. But it looks like you can almost see the outline of the church here. There's some of the brick in the ground. Oh, here you go. This sign's talking about some of the archaeological work that's been done, and take a look at that. You can get an idea of where the church was, the fencing, and the cemetery itself. Golly. So this really is sacred ground here. And similar to that last sign here, we see another depiction of what the church itself would have looked like, the plan for the church. We can see that right here. And back here is another sign dedicated to the Battle of Green Spring. With another really helpful map here. This is actually the battle map that was drawn in 1781 that I had mentioned earlier. And all the fighting took place right in this area. We were previously right about here, and now we're about a mile east to where the church on the main once stood. And this sign also provides some good backstory that we actually didn't talk about yet. Another battle that's fairly unknown, Spencer's Ordinary. Prior to the battle, the Marquis de Lafayette, leading a small force of Americans, had followed the much larger British army from the Richmond area to nearby Spencer's Ordinary, 6 miles to the north, where a skirmish occurred on June 26, 1781. And of course, that ultimately led to the Battle of Green Spring, which took place here, where Cornwallis had set the trap, and unfortunately for the Americans, we kind of fell into it, but thankfully, really due to the action of General Wayne and him ordering that unexpected charge, they were able to all withdraw and we didn't lose the entire army, which, to be honest with you, if we lost Lafayette's entire army or even the 900 men under General Wayne, that may have changed the course of history. We'll never know, but you just never know with these things when you're talking about battles. It could just be one moment, one event, one person's decision that changes everything. And here at the bottom it says, Church on the Main likely served as a field hospital for casualties from both sides, and some soldiers may be buried in the surrounding church cemetery. Other casualties were interred where they fell by joint burial parties. The grave of one patriot was found by archaeologists on the battlefield in 1978, and he was reburied in this cemetery in 2016. Back here is another marker. This one reads, in memory of the 6 Virginia and 22 Pennsylvania Line Patriots who died in the Battle of Green Spring on July 6, 1781, and are buried near here. By their sacrifices, they made possible the establishment of a free United States of America. And not far from that marker, right here before us, is the tomb of the Unknown Patriot Soldier. And laid to rest here is the Patriot Soldier that they discovered on the battlefield in 1978. And I've been to a few tombs of the Unknown Soldier. One of the most prominent is in Philadelphia. I've also visited one in Alexandria, and I know there's others. But every time I visit one of these sites, I really just get taken aback and really fall into reflection because I think about my own Patriot ancestors, and certainly I know who they were and I knew what their contributions were. But for many of them, and I'm sure for many of your ancestors, we don't know where they're buried. They don't have a final resting place. There's no grave marker. There's no way I can honor them beyond keeping their legacy and their memory alive. So it really makes you think about these unknown soldiers who are buried in these tombs. And it's wonderful that we have these opportunities to visit these sites, to pay our respects, and to really reflect on and remember the sacrifices that so many men and women made in the cause for American independence. I'm going to finish up my time here at the tomb of the Unknown Patriot Soldier. But the Battle of Green Spring is just one more chapter of the American Revolutionary War. You know, it's just one more step towards achieving American independence. And if you're ever in the area visiting Jamestown, Yorktown, Williamsburg, of course, there's a ton of history here in the area. I hope you find the time to visit the Battle of Green Spring and come pay your respects to the tomb of the Unknown Patriot Soldier. I think it's really important that we remember our ancestors and honor them. And particularly being America 250, I think remembering the men and women who sacrificed so much, in some cases their life, for American independence. I think that's important that we do so. But that's going to be it for this one. Now it's on to the next journey.